there has to be a whole new encyclopedia of derogatory terms, for me anyway, to describe this subhuman and his filthy family. God. Ugh. Now, speaking of the orange vomit, the revelations here that House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said what he said. Woo! Well, there's more now, okay? According to the Washington Post this morning, Trump and McCarthy got on the phone last night about this newly released audio of McCarthy telling Republican leaders that Trump should get the fuck out of town after what he did on September 6th, January 6th, 2001, the attack on the Capitol. That's according to two people familiar with the conversation last night between Trump and McCarthy. And the audio itself contradicts the lying fascist Christian Kevin McCarthy's claim that he didn't say anything about Trump resigning after the insurrection by the pro-Trump mob. And on Friday, that would be today, more audio clips surfaced in which McCarthy says, quote, "I've had it with this guy," referring to the filthy pig Trump. And in these latest audio clips, he blames Trump for the what happened on the Capitol on January 6th. Trump apparently, this is according to the Washington Post again, Trump apparently was not upset about what McCarthy said. And he was glad that McCarthy didn't follow through, which the orange vomit sees as a sign that his own grip on the Republican Party continues. And that's according to two people who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss their private conversation, people who heard this phone call, I guess. However, apparently House Republicans are still waiting for a firm statement from Trump, according to multiple Republican aides, on how to determine whether they should still back McCarthy as their leader and potential speaker when the Republican Christian fascists take over the House after this November's election, which they are going to do. So the Republicans in the House are waiting with a bated breath. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Has Il Duce spoken? What do we do? What do you do about McCarthy? Oh my God, he wanted the orange vomit to resign. Well, so did I, but I'd never fucking put it on a tape. One Republican congressional aide who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations said this to the Washington Post, quote, "If Trump comes out and says McCarthy lost my faith and can't be speaker, well, that will move people. If he puts out a statement complaining, he complains about McConnell all the time and he hasn't threatened his position in leadership," end quote. Well, the sentence there goes nowhere, does it? I guess we're supposed to mentally insert a 3-dot ellipsis and just go, oh, okay. We will all wait with a bated breath, too. Now, it's a minute and a half audio clip. It's from January 10th, 4 days after the attempt to overthrow the government of the United States. And it was made public after the little Christian fascist Kevin McCarthy disputed a report earlier yesterday that he and McConnell had privately pledged to push Trump out of politics following that riot and attempt to overthrow the government. The McCarthy and McConnell, that these two had this discussion. We got to get rid of this fucker. We've got to get rid of him. Now, during the call, Liz Cheney was on the call. She was asked whether there was any chance Trump would resign. McCarthy said, and you can hear on the call, that he was doubtful about that, but he said, quote, "I'm seriously thinking of having that conversation with him tonight," end quote. Conversation of, "Hey, Trump, get the fuck out of town." And McCarthy added that in this phone call that he would tell Trump, because the Democrats are pushing forward the plans to again impeach this bastard, McCarthy said he would tell Trump that, quote, "It would be my recommendation you should resign," end quote. That's on the audio clip. And McCarthy added that he didn't think his saying that would persuade the orange vomit. Well, of course not. Nothing persuades Trump. Nothing. And on the audio, you can also hear McCarthy saying, quote, "Now, this is one personal fear I have. I do not want to get in any conversation about Pence pardoning him," end quote, as Gerald Ford did with the megalomaniac Richard Nixon, an alcoholic, I might add, Richard Nixon. Now, the reporting is based on the work of two New York Times reporters, Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns, who have a book coming out next month. The title is "This Will Not Pass: Trump, Biden, and the Battle for America's Future." The call between or among all these Republican leaders who are trying to figure out what to do with this filthy pig Trump, the call lasted more than an hour. And if you were listening to Rachel's show last night, the audio clip was on MSNBC last night. This morning, the two writers, Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns, appeared on CNN. And they had additional audio clips from Republican leadership calls in which Kevin McCarthy, the little fascist Christian, blames Trump for the attacks on the Capitol and says the president told him, that Trump told him that he has, quote, "some responsibility for the riot." Really? And in audio from a January 10th call, McCarthy says this, quote, "I've had it with this guy. What he did is unacceptable. Nobody can defend that, and nobody should defend it," end quote. Really, Kevin? Oh, my goodness, you found your copy of the Constitution someplace? Where was it? Tucked into your Bible? Nobody can defend that, and nobody should defend it, quote unquote, Kevin McCarthy. And then on a day later, on a separate call, and this is all, these reporters have the audio. I mean, the audio is there. But McCarthy tells Republican leaders, quote, "But let me be very clear to all of you, and I've been very clear to the president. He bears responsibility for his words and actions. No ifs, ands, and buts. I asked him personally today, does he hold responsibility for what happened? Does he feel bad about what happened? And he told me he does have some responsibility for what happened, and he needs to acknowledge that." End quote. Now, when questioned by news organizations, including the Washington Post, McCarthy's office has not responded to any of this. And of course, Liz Cheney, you know, now is vice chairman of that Select House committee investigating the deadly attack where 5 people were killed on January 6th at the Capitol by this pro-Trump mob of fucking scum. In a statement, a spokesman for Liz Cheney said, quote, "The Select Committee has asked Kevin McCarthy to speak with us about these events, but he has so far declined. Representative Cheney did not record or leak the tape and does not know how the reporters got it." End quote. And in a statement, a spokesman for this true Nazi bastard, Steve Scalise, Republican from Louisiana, a real fascist Christian if one ever existed. He's the number 2 Republican in House leadership. he dismissed the issue with a comment against Democrats, but most notably did not defend McCarthy by name. And a spokesman, I guess, for Steve Scalise said, quote, Whip Scalise's sole focus is on working with his colleagues to stop the radical Democrat agenda. Neither he nor anyone on his team recorded or leaked private conversations among members, end quote. And then a spokesman for the House Democratic Campaign Committee was more blunt in his statement. Quote, Kevin McCarthy has proven himself to be a spineless leader and now a bald-faced liar. End quote. And a spokesman for this little weasel, McCarthy, told the New York Times that come on, Mike, that McCarthy himself, quote, never said he'd call Trump to say he should resign, end quote. So what are you going to believe? Your lying ears or what this little schmuck bastard who speaks for McCarthy had to say, huh? And in a statement this morning, or yesterday morning, Kevin McCarthy called the paper's reporting, quote, totally false and wrong. And the news media is doing everything it can to further a liberal agenda. And then he added this. The past year and a half have proven that our country was better off when President Trump was in the White House. And rather than address the real issues facing America, the corporate media is more concerned with profiting from manufactured political intrigue from politically motivated sources, end quote. Which means, the translation, yeah, I'm guilty as a motherfucker. Absolutely. I did it. I have shit all over me from getting into that shit storm with Trump. Yes, I did it. Yes, I did it. But I've got to divert your attention. Otherwise, I might be accused of a cover-up. In spite of the reported comments condemning Trump in the days after the attack on the Capitol, both Kevin McCarthy and this scummy fucker, Mitch McConnell, went right back to offering up virtual blowjobs to Donald Trump as soon as they could. They were back in front of him on their knees. Boom. In late January, within 3 weeks after the attempt to overthrow the government, McCarthy went to Mar-a-Lago in Florida, where McCarthy and Trump apparently discussed the GOP's efforts to retake the House. And they posed for a photo together. And both of them have these shit-eating grins on their faces. It's just disgusting. Oh, my God. It's vile. And the following month, the little weasel, well, actually the turtle, Mitch McConnell, that gutless bastard, said he would, his word, absolutely support Trump if he were to win the Republican nomination in 2024. Good God. They're just, it's sickening. It's filthy. It's disgusting. It's fascist Christianity. In all its filthy glory. Here it is, staring us right in the face. This is not what you learned in Sunday school. This is what these American fascists have done to the message of the rabbi from Nazareth. This is what they've done, and they still have the fucking nerve to call it Christianity. Okay, if that's what they want to call it, I'll go along, but I'll add the modifier. It is fascist Christianity, and they are fascist Christians. So carry on, you son of a bitches. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcasts. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.